Wealthy CEO threw his wife out under his mother's orders. 3 years later, he saw her with twins in a ring. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up outside their school looking destroyed like you have any right to feel anything about children you've never met. Jade, please. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know they existed until I found the birth certificates my mother hid. I've been searching for 8 months. 8 months? 8 months of searching doesn't erase 3 years of absence, Blake. Your mother showed me bank statements with your signature. She showed me emails in your name, telling lawyers to make sure I understood. You wanted nothing to do with me or any complications from our marriage. She made it very clear that you paid me to vanish completely. Those statements were forged. Those emails were never written by me. I thought you terminated the pregnancy. I thought you took the settlement and wanted nothing to do with me. My mother told me you were gone, that you were relieved to be free of the Ashworth family, and I believed her because I was drowning, and she was my mother, and I never questioned her lies. You never questioned. That's the problem, isn't it? You never called me yourself. You never tried to find me yourself. You just signed the papers your mother put in front of you and went back to your empire while I was pregnant and alone, trying to figure out how to survive. I know. You're right. I was a coward. I chose the easy path. I let my mother control everything because standing up to her felt impossible. But Jade, those girls over there, they're my daughters. I've missed 3 years of their lives, and I know I don't deserve anything from you, but please let me at least show you the evidence. Let me prove that I didn't know. Evidence doesn't change the fact that you threw me away when your mother told you to. Evidence doesn't give me back 3 years of struggling alone. And it definitely doesn't mean you get to disrupt a life I built from nothing. I'm not trying to disrupt anything. I just want to know them. I just want a chance to be their father. You're 3 years too late. And that ring on my finger? That's the man who showed up when you were too busy being obedient to fight for your family. Family. Have you ever made a choice that felt right in the moment, only to discover it destroyed everything that actually mattered? Have you ever been so blind to manipulation that you lost your entire future before you even realized it was slipping away? This is the story of how a mother's lies, a son's weakness, and 3 years of absence created a family that exists entirely without the father who should have been there from the beginning. This is about betrayal, about redemption, and about discovering that sometimes the truth surfaces when you least expect it, forcing you to answer one impossible question. Are you brave enough to fight for what you lost even when you absolutely don't deserve a second chance? If you've ever felt the crushing weight of regret, if you've ever wondered whether it's too late to fix the mistakes that haunt you, then you're exactly where you need to be right now. Hit that like button if you're ready for a story that will take you through betrayal, survival, and the kind of love that refuses to stay buried no matter how many lies tried to kill it. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Dr. Phillips. Let's walk through this journey together, family. Trust me, you're going to need to see how this unfolds. Rain has a way of making ghosts visible, and Blake Ashworth is drowning in them. He stands outside Riverside Elementary School, gripping the iron fence until the cold metal bites into his palms, watching 2 small figures chase each other through puddles that reflect a gray October sky and broken promises. Their laughter cuts through the afternoon like light through shattered glass, piercing and pure and completely unaware that the man watching them has been searching for them for 8 months, has been dying inside for 3 years, has been living half a life since the moment he signed papers that destroyed everything. Blake knows before certainty arrives, before logic confirms what his body already understands with a kind of bone-deep recognition that doesn't require proof. Daughters. His daughters. The twins his mother swore didn't exist. The children stolen from him through lies so calculated, so systematic, so thoroughly constructed that they rewrote 3 entire years of his existence. They're wearing matching rain jackets, one yellow, bright as a warning sign, one blue, deep as the ocean he feels like he's drowning in. Their dark curls are plastered to foreheads that carry bone structure he recognizes, features that are his and yet completely foreign because they've been shaped by a life he knows nothing about, by a mother who survived what should have destroyed her, by 3 years of growing and learning and becoming people without any awareness that their father exists. The one in yellow, she's methodical, careful. She organizes fallen leaves by size along the playground's edge, arranging them in perfect rows with a kind of concentration that speaks to an analytical mind. She lines them up from smallest to largest, her small hands precise and purposeful, and Blake can see himself in that need for order, that desire to make sense of chaos through categorization. The one in blue spins in circles with her arms extended, singing something he can't hear from this distance but can. See in the shape of her open mouth, in the joy radiating from her small body as she turns and turns and turns. She's pure motion, pure happiness, pure unself-conscious delight in the simple act of existing in the rain. And Blake sees Jade in that, sees the woman he married and destroyed, sees the freedom and joy he took from her when he chose his mother's approval over fighting for his family. 3 years old. They have to be 3 years old, maybe approaching 4. Born roughly 9 months after the divorce he signed without fighting, without questioning, without doing a single thing to verify that what his mother told him was actually true. Then he sees her. Jade stands under the shelter's overhang, watching the girls with an expression that makes Blake forget how to breathe properly, forget how to stand without the fence holding him upright, forget everything except the fact that she's right there after 3 years of absence, after 8 months of desperate searching, after countless nights of imagining what he would say when he finally found her. She's thinner than he remembers. Her face carries new angles that weren't there before, angles that speak of hardship endured and survived, of struggle that carved away softness and left strength in its place. There are shadows under her eyes that tell stories of sleepless nights and worry and the exhaustion of raising twins alone. Her hair is longer, twisted into a thick braid that falls over one shoulder, and she's wearing dark jeans and a sage green sweater that brings out the warmth in her brown skin, that makes her look earthy and real and absolutely devastating. She looks like survival carved into human form, beautiful in a way that has nothing to do with comfort and everything to do with refusing to break, with choosing to keep going even when giving up would have been so much easier. And on her left hand, catching the dim light filtering through rain clouds, there's a ring, not their wedding band, which Blake kept in his desk drawer like evidence of his own failure, like a talisman of everything he destroyed. A different ring, silver and simple and elegant, gleaming with the promise of someone else's devotion, someone else's future, someone else's right to the family that should have been Blake's. The ground tilts sideways. Blake grips the fence harder, his knuckles going white, his breath coming in short gasps that feel inadequate for the moment. Jade has moved on. Of course she has. 3 years is a lifetime. 3 years is long enough to heal, to rebuild, to find someone who actually shows up when showing up matters. 3 years is long enough to build a complete life that has no space for the man who abandoned her. The hospital record sits in Blake's jacket pocket, worn soft from being unfolded and refolded too many times over the past 8 months. Birth certificates dated 30 months ago. Twin daughters, Harper Marie Winters and Hayden Grace Winters. His name listed as father, though he'd known nothing, though he'd been living in ignorance while Jade was giving birth alone, while she was learning to be a mother without any support from the man who should have been there. She'd kept her maiden name for them. Winters, not Ashworth. She'd built their entire identity without his family's name anywhere near it. Had created a world where the Ashworth legacy meant nothing and probably never would. His mother's stroke had been the earthquake that cracked open her carefully constructed lies. Constance Ashworth, that pillar of control and manipulation, reduced to a hospital bed and shaking hands that could barely write but still managed to confess. Ask about the birth certificates I hid in the safe. Code is your father's death date. Blake had found them at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday that split his life into before and after. Before, he was the dutiful son who'd made the hard choice to divorce, his wife to save the family company, who'd believed his mother when she said Jade had terminated the pregnancy and taken the settlement. Money, and wanted nothing to do with the Ashworth family ever again. After, he was the man who understood he'd been living inside a lie so comprehensive, so thoroughly constructed, that it had stolen his entire future without him even realizing what was being taken. 8 months of searching. 8 months of private investigators and sealed records and dead ends. That made Blake want to tear the world apart with his bare hands. 8 months of knowing his children existed somewhere, knowing Jade thought he'd abandoned her, knowing he had no way to explain that he'd been lied to just as completely as she had, just in a different direction. 8 months of imagining this moment, of planning what he would say, how he would approach, how he would make her understand. That he didn't know, that he was manipulated, that he's been searching desperately since the moment he discovered the truth. None of his imagining prepared him for the reality of seeing them, of watching his daughters play in the rain, wearing jackets that look like hand-me-downs, or thrift store finds, living modest lives while he owns things he's never even worn. None of his preparation accounts for the ring on Jade's finger, for the physical evidence that she's built a future that doesn't include him, that probably never will. The girl in yellow, Harper maybe, or Hayden, he doesn't even know which is which, looks up suddenly. Her gaze tracks across the playground with the precision of a searchlight, moving past other parents and benches and playground equipment, until it lands directly on him, standing at the fence line like some kind of ghost who doesn't have the sense to stay invisible. She's too far away for him to see her eye color clearly, but Blake knows with absolute certainty that they're his eyes. That specific gray-blue his mother always called unfortunate Ashworth eyes, the color that marked him as his father's son, the genetic signature that can't be hidden or denied. The girl stares at him with an intensity that makes Blake feel transparent, stripped bare, like she can see through his expensive Tom Ford coat and his carefully maintained composure straight into the hollow place where his heart used to be before it shattered into pieces too small to ever fully reassemble. She says something to her sister, pointing in his direction with a small hand. The girl in blue looks over, her expression more open, more curious, less guarded than her twin. Jade's head snaps around so fast Blake actually flinches. Even from this distance he can see the color drain from her face, can see recognition. Hit her like physical impact, like a car crash happening in slow motion. She goes completely rigid, her entire body freezing in place like she's been turned to stone by the sight of him. 3 seconds pass, 3 seconds that feel like centuries, like entire lifetimes compressed into frozen moments where nothing moves except rain falling and Blake's heart trying to beat its way out of his chest. Then Jade is moving, walking toward the girls with purposeful strides that eat up the distance in seconds. Her hands reach out to gather them close, her body language shifting into protective mode, becoming a barrier between her daughters and the stranger at the fence who has no right to be here, no right to disrupt their carefully constructed Tuesday afternoon. Blake should leave. He knows this with the rational part of his brain that still functions despite the emotional devastation. He should walk away right now, should call her like a civilized adult, should arrange this properly with warning and respect for the boundaries he destroyed 3 years ago. He should give her control over when and how this happens, should let her prepare, should do literally anything except stand here like a stalker outside their elementary school. But his legs won't move, his eyes won't close, and he's rooted to this spot like a tree that's been growing here for decades, watching the family he should have had living a life he knows absolutely nothing about. Jade speaks to the girls, and they both turn to look at him again. The one in blue waves uncertainly, a child's instinctive friendliness towards strangers who might be interesting, might be worth knowing, might have stories or candy or some other reason to exist in their awareness. The one in yellow steps slightly in front of her sister, positioning her smaller body as a shield, protective even at 3 years. Old, already understanding at some fundamental level that the world requires caution and strangers require evaluation before trust. Blake recognizes the gesture because he used to stand exactly that way. When he was young before his father died and his mother became the sole architect of his existence, he would position himself between his younger brother and their father's unpredictable moods, trying to be a buffer, trying to protect someone more vulnerable from potential harm. The protective instinct is genetic, apparently. His daughter inherited it without ever meeting him, without ever knowing that her father understands exactly what she's doing and why. Jade sends the girls toward the swings on the far side of the playground with gestures that are firm, but gentle. A mother who knows how to direct without frightening, how to protect without alarming. The girls obey immediately, their compliance speaking to trust built through consistency, through a mother who has proven herself reliable in the thousands of small ways that create secure attachment. Then Jade turns and walks directly toward Blake, and his heart stops entirely. She reaches the fence and stops 4 feet away, close enough to speak without shouting over the rain's percussion against metal and concrete, far enough that touching would be impossible, that any physical connection is prevented by distance deliberately maintained. Rain darkens her sage green sweater and makes her braid gleam. Individual drops slide down her face like tears that aren't actually tears, like the sky crying because she won't. And she's the most devastating thing Blake has ever seen in his entire life because she's right there, close enough to touch if not. For the fence and the distance and the 3 years of absence that created a chasm too wide to cross with a simple conversation. "You don't get to do this," Jade says. Her voice is so quiet it barely carries over the rain, but every word lands with perfect clarity, with surgical precision, cutting exactly where she intends. You don't get to show up outside their school looking destroyed like you have any right to feel anything about children you've never met. Blake opens his mouth, and his throat won't work. Words jam together into an impossible knot of everything he needs to say and no way to say any of it that one. Sound like excuses or explanations or the pathetic pleading of someone who deserves absolutely nothing. I didn't know, he finally manages, and his voice sounds broken even to his own ears. Sounds like it's coming from someone else entirely, someone who's been hollowed out and is using the last of their strength just to speak. Jade, I swear to you, I didn't know they existed until I found the birth certificates my mother hid. I've been searching for 8 months. My parents lied to both of us. Jade laughs, and the sound carries so much bitterness it could strip paint from walls, could corrode metal, could destroy anything it touches. Your mother showed me bank statements with your approval signature. Your mother showed me emails in your name, instructing lawyers to make everything disappear, to include clauses that would prevent me from ever contacting the Ashworth family again. Your mother made absolutely certain that I understood you knew about the pregnancy and paid me to vanish completely. So whatever story you're telling yourself now, whatever guilt brought you here, to stand outside my daughter's school, it doesn't change what actually happened. The ground tilts further, and Blake grabs the fence with both hands to keep from falling because his mother didn't just hide the truth from him. She created an entire false narrative, forged his involvement, manufactured evidence of his knowledge and consent, made Jade believe that Blake knew about the pregnancy and actively chose to make her disappear. The cruelty is so absolute, so comprehensive, so thoroughly malicious that Blake can't breathe around the weight of it. I never saw those statements, he says desperately, words tumbling out too fast, tripping over each other, in their urgency to be heard, to be believed, to somehow bridge the impossible distance between them. I never wrote those emails. I thought you terminated the pregnancy, exactly like my mother told me you did. I thought you took the settlement money and disappeared because you wanted nothing to do with me or my family. My mother told me you were gone, that you were relieved to be free of us, and I believed her because I was drowning in grief and corporate crisis, and she was my mother, and I never questioned whether she would lie about something that fundamental. You never questioned, Jade interrupts, and now there's something volcanic in her voice, something preparing to erupt and destroy everything in its path. That's exactly the problem, Blake. You never called me yourself. You never tried to find me yourself. You just signed whatever papers your mother put in front of you and went back to your life, went back to running your empire, went back to being the obedient son who does whatever Constance Ashworth commands because that's what you've always done. You made the safe choice, the easy choice, the choice that keeps the Ashworth legacy intact no matter who it destroys in the process. She's right. She's absolutely, devastatingly, completely right. Blake has no defense because he did make the safe choice. He did let his parents control the narrative, control the divorce, control every single aspect of his life because fighting them felt impossible and obeying them felt like the responsible thing to do. They're my daughters, Blake says, and it comes out broken and pleading and nothing like how he meant it to sound. Nothing like the strong declaration he practiced in his car. I can see it even from here. Those are my daughters, and I've missed 3 years of their lives, and I know I don't deserve anything from you, but please, Jade, please just let me explain what happened. Let me show you the evidence. Let me prove that I didn't know. No. The word lands like a door slamming shut, like a judge's gavel, like the final nail in a coffin. You don't get to use them to feel better about your guilt. You don't get to disrupt the life I built from absolutely nothing just because you suddenly decided to care, because you finally discovered that choices have consequences. Those girls over there, the ones on the swings, they don't know you exist. They don't know their father's name. They don't know anything except that their mother loves them, and they're safe, and their life makes sense. And I will absolutely not let you destroy that stability because you suddenly decided 3 years later that you want to be involved. Blake watches Jade's hand move as she gestures, and the ring catches what little light filters through rain clouds. Silver and present and representing someone else's claim to the family that should have been his. Are you engaged? The question tears out of Blake before he can stop it, before he can consider whether he has any right to ask, before he can think about anything except the ring and what it means and who put it there. Jade's expression shifts. Surprise, then something that might be calculation, then a kind of defiant satisfaction. That's none of your business, Blake. Does he know about me? Blake can barely get the words out, can barely force them past the constriction in his throat. Does he know they're mine? They're not yours, Jade says, her voice turning to ice, becoming so cold Blake can almost see frost forming on the words. You don't get to claim them just because biology says so. Being a father requires showing up, Blake. It requires being there when it's hard and inconvenient and complicated. It requires choosing your family over your mother's approval, over your company's stability, over your own comfort. It requires fighting when fighting matters. And you never, not once, not ever, fought for me. Each word is a knife, precise and deserved, cutting exactly where Blake knows he deserves to be cut. I was lied to, Blake says, and he hates how pathetic it sounds, hates that he's making excuses, hates that he can't find better words to express that he was manipulated just as thoroughly as she was, just in a different direction. Just like you were, Jade. We were both manipulated. She kept us apart using different lies. She told you I knew and didn't care. She told me you'd moved on and didn't want to be found. She created this entire system designed to make sure we never questioned, never reached out, never discovered the truth. The difference, Jade says, her voice shaking now with barely contained fury, is that I would have fought for you. I did fight for you, Blake. I tried calling you 17 times after your mother showed me those papers. 17 calls that went straight to voicemail. I tried emailing you, and every single message bounced back like the address didn't exist. I tried showing up at your office building, and security escorted me out like I was some kind of threat. I fought until I physically couldn't fight anymore, until I was pregnant, and alone, and too exhausted to keep hitting walls your mother built. You never fought for me once, not once. You just accepted her version of reality without testing it. The truth of it crashes into Blake like a tsunami, like a physical force that knocks the air from his lungs. She's right. Even manipulated, even lied to, Jade had tried to reach him. She'd fought through the barriers his mother constructed, and Blake had never tried to reach her, had never questioned, had never done a single thing to verify the story he was told. I'm sorry, Blake whispers, and the words feel infinitely inadequate, feel like trying to heal a severed artery with a Band-Aid. God, Jade, I'm so sorry. I should have fought. I should have questioned. I should have been stronger, braver, better than I was. I should have chosen you over everything else, and I didn't, and that failure is entirely mine. I own it. I know sorry doesn't fix it. I know it doesn't give you back 3 years. I know it's just a word. But I am so desperately, completely sorry. Jade wipes her eyes angrily, furious that he's making her cry, furious that 3 years later he can still affect her, still make her feel anything except the indifference she's probably worked so hard to cultivate. What do you want from me, Blake? She asks finally, her voice raw. What outcome are you hoping for by standing here in the rain outside my daughter's school? Blake looks past her to where the girls are swinging, their legs pumping in unison, their matching jackets bright spots of color against the gray afternoon. His daughters, 3 years old and completely perfect, and living entire lives without any awareness that their father exists and has been searching for them with increasing desperation. I want to meet them, Blake says, and his voice breaks on the words. I want to know my daughters, Jade. I want to be part of their lives in whatever capacity you'll allow. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking to undo the past. I'm not even asking you to believe that I didn't know, though I'm begging you to at least look at the evidence before you decide. I'm just asking for a chance to be present for their future. That's all. Just a chance. Jade stares at him for a long moment, and Blake can see her thinking, processing, weighing his words against 3 years of absence and betrayal and struggle. I need time, she says finally. I need to process this. I need to decide what's best for them, not what feels fair to you or satisfying to me. This isn't about your redemption, Blake. This is about 2 little girls who deserve stability and safety and a life that makes sense. And I will not let you disrupt that just because you suddenly feel guilty. I'll wait as long as you need, Blake says immediately. I'll do whatever you ask. I'll follow whatever boundaries you set. Just please, please don't decide I'm too much of a risk without at least considering that I was manipulated just like you were. Jade turns to walk away, and Blake calls after her. My mother is dying. Pancreatic cancer. She has maybe 6 months. She's the one who told me to find you, who confessed what she did. I think she wants to apologize before she dies. though I don't know if that matters to you." Jade stops walking but doesn't turn around. "It doesn't matter," she says quietly. "Her apology won't give me back what she stole. It won't make the last 3 years easier. It won't change anything." "I know," Blake says. "I just thought you should know." Jade walks back to the girls without responding, and Blake watches her gather them, watches her help them into their car, watches his family drive away while he stands in the rain holding a fence and trying to figure out how you rebuild a life from ruins when the person you need forgiveness from has already moved on. The drive back to his penthouse passes in a blur. Blake doesn't remember getting in his car, or navigating traffic, or parking in his reserved spot. He just suddenly finds himself standing in his apartment, this massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows and designer furniture and the kind of sterile perfection that suggests someone lives here but doesn't actually exist beyond work. He pulls the birth certificates from his jacket pocket with shaking hands. Harper Marie Winters, Hayden Grace Winters, born January 15th, 3 years ago. 6 pounds 2 ounces and 5 pounds 14 ounces. Father, Blake Ashworth. Mother, Jade Winters. She'd written his name. Even after the divorce, even after his mother's lies, even believing he'd abandoned her, Jade had written Blake's name on their birth certificates. She'd given him that acknowledgement, even when she thought he didn't deserve it. Blake sits on his expensive couch in his empty apartment and holds the papers and cries for the first time since his father's funeral. He cries for 3 years lost. He cries for the first steps he didn't see, the first words he didn't hear, the birthdays he missed, the nights Jade struggled alone while he was living in ignorance. He cries for his own weakness, his own failure to question, his own choice to be obedient instead of brave. His phone rings, his mother's name on the screen. He almost doesn't answer, almost lets it go to voicemail, but answers anyway because obligation is harder to break than love. "Did you find them?" Constance asks, her voice weak from the cancer eating her alive, karma manifesting as disease. "Yes," Blake says flatly. "I found them. They're beautiful. Perfect. 3 years old. And Jade hates me because you made her believe I knew about the pregnancy and paid her to disappear. You forged my signature on bank statements. You created fake emails in my name. You didn't just hide the truth from me, Mother. You made her think I was actively choosing to abandon my own children." Silence on the other end. "I need you to tell her the truth," Blake says. "I need you to confess what you did. She won't believe me, but she might believe you." "I'm dying," Constance says, like that's relevant, like that excuses anything. "Then die with one less sin on your conscience," Blake says, and hangs up. He spends the rest of the evening researching Jade. It's not hard to find her online. She's rebuilt her career as a user experience designer, specializing in healthcare interfaces. Her portfolio website shows elegant, intuitive designs that prioritize accessibility and user needs. She's good. She was always good, and his mother's non-compete agreement had tried to destroy that, but Jade had found a way around it, had rebuilt from nothing, had become successful despite every obstacle placed in her path. He finds her Instagram account, set to private but with a public profile photo showing her with the twins. All 3 of them laughing at something off camera, their faces lit with genuine joy. The photo is 6 months old according to the date stamp. He searches for Garrett Cole and finds him immediately. Dr. Garrett Cole, pediatric surgeon at Riverside Hospital. Impressive credentials, published research, glowing patient reviews, photos of him at medical conferences, at charity events, looking competent and kind and exactly like the type of man who would step into a ready-made family and love them well. Blake hates him immediately and completely, even while recognizing that Garrett is probably a good man who showed up when Blake was absent, who proved himself through consistency when Blake was living in lies. The ring on Jade's finger belongs to Garrett. Blake knows this with crushing certainty. Garrett proposed. Jade said yes. She's building a future with a man who earned the right to be there, who didn't. Do you have to be lied to in order to abandon her, who simply showed up and stayed? Blake has lost before he even began, but he also knows he can't give up. Those are his daughters. That's the woman he loved enough to marry and then destroyed through weakness. And even if Jade never forgives him, even if she marries Garrett and builds a perfect life without Blake anywhere in it, his daughters deserve to know their father. They deserve to make their own choices about whether they want a relationship with him. He just has to prove to Jade that he's not the same man who signed those divorce papers. that he's learned, that he's changed, that he's capable of choosing right this time, when choosing right is inconvenient and hard and requires standing up to his own fear. 3 days pass before Blake's phone rings with an unfamiliar number. He answers immediately, hoping irrationally that it's Jade. "Mr. Ashworth?" A woman's voice, professional and neutral. "This is Patricia Reeves. I'm a hospice nurse caring for your mother. She's asked me to call you. She'd like to speak with Jade Winters, and she's hoping you'll facilitate that meeting." Blake closes his eyes. "No," he says. "If my mother wants to speak with Jade, she needs to ask Jade herself. I'm not facilitating anything. Jade has my contact information if she decides she wants to hear what my mother has to say. But I won't pressure her. Your mother is insistent," the nurse says carefully. "She says it's important that Mrs. Winters understands what happened. Then my mother should have thought about that 3 years ago before she destroyed both of our lives," Blake says, and hangs up. But 2 hours later, his phone rings again. This time it's Jade. "Your mother wants to see me," she says without preamble. "Why?" Blake takes a breath. "She wants to confess. She wants to tell you herself that she lied, that she forged my involvement, that I didn't know about the pregnancy. I think she wants to die with a slightly less guilty conscience." "And you want me to give her that?" Jade asks, her voice hard. "No," Blake says honestly. "I don't care about her conscience, but I thought you might want to hear her admit what she did. I thought it might help you understand what actually happened, even if understanding doesn't change anything." Jade is quiet for a moment. "When does she want to meet?" "Whenever you're available. She doesn't have long. The cancer is moving fast." "Tomorrow," Jade says. 2 o'clock. At the hospital. "I'll come alone, and I want you there too. I want to watch both of you while she talks. I want to see if either of you are lying." "We'll be there," Blake promises. The next day arrives too quickly and not quickly enough. Blake drives to Riverside Hospital with his stomach in knots, with no idea what his mother will actually say, with desperate hope that her confession will be enough to make Jade at least consider that he was manipulated too. He finds Jade in the hospital corridor outside his mother's room, standing, with her arms crossed, wearing dark jeans and a cream sweater. No ring visible, and Blake's heart leaps before he remembers that she probably just didn't. I'd wear it to the hospital, that its absence means nothing about her engagement status. "Thank you for coming," Blake says quietly. "I'm not doing this for you," Jade says. Or, for her. "I'm doing this for me. I need to hear her say it. I need to know if what you told me is true." They walk into the room together, and Blake's mother looks nothing like the imperious woman who'd sat across from Jade 3 years ago, sliding divorce papers across a mahogany desk with perfectly manicured hands and absolute certainty that she was doing the right thing. Cancer has reduced Constance Ashworth to something small and fragile, her skin paper-thin, her once perfect. Silver hair now wispy and dull, her body diminished to nearly nothing under the hospital blankets. But her eyes are still sharp, still aware, still carrying the intelligence that made her such an effective destroyer of lives. "Jade," Constance says, and her voice cracks on the name, breaks like it's been unused for too long. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't certain you would." Jade doesn't sit, doesn't move closer, just stands at the foot of the bed with her arms crossed, a woman who has learned that getting too close to Constance Ashworth leads to devastation. "I'm here. Say what you need to say." Constance's gaze flicks to Blake, then back to Jade. "I need you to understand that I was wrong. About everything. About you. About what was best for my son. About my right to control his life and make decisions that weren't mine to make. You were more than wrong," Jade says, her voice steady despite the fury underneath, steady, in a way that speaks to practice, to having said these words in her head 1,000 times. "You were cruel. You destroyed my marriage, my career, my entire life because you decided I wasn't good enough for your family. You forged documents and intercepted my communications and made absolutely certain that Blake believed I wanted nothing to do with him. You kept him from his daughters for 3 years. "Yes," Constance says simply. No deflection, no excuse, just flat acknowledgement. "I did all of that. I told myself it was protection, that you were wrong for him, that the marriage was a mistake, that I was saving him from ruin." "You mean I was black?" Jade says bluntly, making it explicit, refusing to let it be softened into euphemisms. "You mean I didn't come from your world?" You mean I wasn't the type of woman you'd chosen for him, and so I had to be eliminated? Constance closes her eyes, and tears leak from the corners despite obvious attempts at control. Yes, she whispers. I was prejudiced and controlling, and I convinced myself those qualities were protection rather than cruelty. I was terrified of losing my son to someone I didn't understand, to a life I couldn't control. So I took that choice away from both of you. Blake watches this exchange with his heart in his throat, watching his mother finally speak the truth. She should have spoken 3 years ago, watching Jade absorb confirmation of everything she suspected. I found out you were pregnant 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Constance continues. Her voice barely above a whisper, but every word carrying clearly in the quiet room. A nurse at the hospital where you went for your first ultrasound. She was a friend of mine from the country club. She called me as a courtesy, thinking I'd want to know my daughter-in-law was expecting. Twins, she told me. 2 heartbeats. And I knew I should tell Blake immediately. I knew it was his right to know. But I'd already destroyed your marriage. I'd already created this elaborate fiction where you'd moved on willingly, where the divorce was mutual and simple. Telling Blake about the pregnancy would expose all my lies. So I hid it. How? Jade demands. How did you hide hospital records? How did you intercept birth certificates? Constance's smile is bitter. Money, dear. Money buys access. Money buys cooperation. I paid the right clerks to ensure nothing reached Blake's name in any database he might access. I intercepted the birth notification before it could be officially processed. I made sure every piece of paper that might tell him about your daughters disappeared before he could see it. And the emails? Jade presses. The bank statements showing his approval signature? Forged, Constance admits. I had power of attorney during the company crisis. I had legal authority to sign documents in Blake's name. I used that authority to create evidence of his involvement that didn't actually exist. I created an email address that looked like his, 1 letter different, easy to miss. Every message you sent to Blake went to that account instead of to him. I replied from that account with instructions to lawyers, making it look like he was actively managing your removal from his life. Jade's breath catches, and Blake can see her processing this, can see her understanding. Shift as she realizes the depth and complexity of the manipulation. For 3 years, I watched my son search for you, Constance says, and now her voice carries something. That might be genuine remorse, or might be the performance of remorse, impossible to distinguish. After his father died and he found some old papers I'd missed, he became obsessed with finding you, with understanding what really happened. And I watched him suffer, knowing I could end that suffering with the truth, but I was too proud, too afraid of losing him completely. You were going to take that to your grave, Jade says quietly. If Blake hadn't found those birth certificates himself, you would have died without telling him he had daughters. Probably, Constance admits, her honesty brutal. I was a coward in the end, just like I was cruel in the beginning. Jade moves closer to the bed, and Constance flinches slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of facing someone she's wronged so fundamentally. I don't forgive you, Jade says clearly, each word deliberate. I want you to understand that. I don't forgive what you did to me, or to Blake, or to Harper and Hayden. You stole years we'll never get back. You made choices that affected lives you had no right to control. And dying doesn't absolve you of that. Your deathbed confession doesn't make it okay. I know, Constance whispers. But I believe you, Jade continues. I believe Blake didn't know. I believe you manipulated both of us using different lies. And I'll take that truth with me when I decide what happens next. There's a trust, Constance says, and she's crying openly now, not bothering to hide it. For the girls, Blake has the details. It won't fix what I broke, but it's something. It's security for their futures. Blood money, Jade says without malice, just flat observation. Yes, Constance agrees. But it's theirs regardless of what you think of me. Jade turns to leave, and Constance calls out weakly. One more thing. Please. Just one more thing. Jade stops but doesn't turn around. Blake didn't know, Constance says, and there's desperation in her voice now, urgency driven by approaching death. I need you to believe that. He didn't know about the pregnancy. He didn't know I was intercepting your calls. He didn't know any of it until after my stroke. Everything I told you, all those lies about him wanting you gone, they were my lies, not his. Please don't punish him for my sins. Jade looks back over her shoulder, and her expression is unreadable. I believe he didn't know, But he still chose the divorce. He still let you control his life. He still signed papers without fighting. Those choices were his, even if the pregnancy was hidden from him. So I'll decide what he deserves based on all of it, not just the parts you manipulated. She walks out, and Blake follows after a moment, leaving his mother in her hospital bed with her confession delivered and no absolution granted. In the hospital corridor, Jade leans against the wall and closes her eyes, and Blake can see her shaking slightly. Can see the toll this conversation took despite her controlled exterior during the actual meeting. Are you okay? Blake asks quietly. No, Jade says. No, I'm really not okay. But I have the truth now, at least. I know what actually happened. Does that change anything? Blake asks, hardly daring to hope. Does knowing I didn't know about the pregnancy, does that change how you feel about letting me meet them? Jade opens her eyes and looks at him directly. It changes some things. It makes me understand that the situation was more complicated than I thought. But Blake, you still chose the divorce. Your mother didn't forge that choice. You signed those papers yourself. You let her pressure you into ending our marriage because saving the company felt more important than fighting for us. That part was real. That part was your choice. I know, Blake says miserably. I made the wrong choice. I was weak and scared, and I let my mother control my life because standing up to her felt impossible. But I've changed, Jade. I've spent the last years systematically removing her influence from every aspect of my life and the company. She doesn't control me anymore. Actions, Jade says, not words. If you really want to be in their lives, you'll have to prove it through actions, through showing up consistently, through choosing right when choosing right is inconvenient. Tell me how, Blake says. Tell me what you need me to do, and I'll do it. Jade pushes off the wall and starts walking toward the exit. Give me space to think. Give me time to process this. Give me room to decide what's best for Harper and Hayden without pressure from you. I have your number. I'll call you when I'm ready. How long? Blake asks, following her. Jade stops and turns. As long as it takes. Could be a week. Could be a month. Could be never if I decide you're too much of a risk. You'll have to live with that uncertainty. She walks away, and Blake stands in the hospital corridor feeling like he's been given the smallest sliver of hope, the tiniest possibility that maybe, eventually, he might get a chance to know his daughters. It's not much, but it's more than he had an hour ago. That evening, Blake sits in his penthouse and pulls out his laptop. He starts documenting everything, the divorce papers with dates showing he was out of state when key documents were signed, the forensic analysis of the forged emails showing they came from an IP address traced to his mother's home computer, the power of attorney documents proving she had legal authority to sign his name, the timeline of his search after finding the birth certificates, everything that proves he didn't know, that he was manipulated, that he has been desperately searching since the moment he discovered the truth. He compiles it into a folder, organized and clear, ready to show Jade whenever she's ready to see it. Then he starts a different kind of documentation. He writes letters to Harper and Hayden, even though they can't read yet, even though they may never see these letters. He writes about finding out they exist, about seeing them for the first time, about how his heart broke and healed simultaneously when he watched them playing in the rain, about how sorry he is for missing their first 3 years, about how he'll spend the rest of his life trying to make up for his absence if they'll let him. He writes until his hand cramps and his eyes burn and exhaustion finally pulls him into fitful sleep on his couch, still dressed, still holding a pen, still trying to find words adequate for expressing everything he feels and knows he can never fully articulate. 5 days pass with no word from Jade. Blake goes to work and functions on autopilot, signing documents and attending meetings and making decisions that used to feel important but now feel meaningless because the only thing that matters is whether Jade will give him a chance. On the 6th day, his phone rings at 3 in the afternoon. Jade's name on the screen. Blake answers before the second ring. Hello. I've made a decision, Jade says without preamble. I'm going to let you meet them, but on very specific terms that are non-negotiable. Blake's breath catches, hope flooding through him so intensely it makes him dizzy. Okay, yes, whatever you need. You'll meet them in public spaces only, Jade says, her voice businesslike, laying out parameters like she's negotiating a contract. Supervised by me, at times I choose, for durations I determine. You'll be introduced as Blake, not as their father. Not yet. They need to get to know you as a person before we explain who you are. I understand, Blake says. You'll show up when you say you will. Every single time. No cancellations. No excuses. No choosing work over them. If you commit to being there, you're there. One missed visit, and we're done permanently. I'll be there, Blake says immediately. I swear to you I'll be there. You won't bring expensive gifts, Jade continues. You won't try to buy their affection with things I can't provide. If you want a relationship with them, it has to be built on presence, not presence. Okay, Blake agrees, and there's a long pause before Jade says the hardest condition. You won't speak negatively about Garrett in front of them. They love him. He's been in their lives for 6 months. He's been patient and kind and shown up consistently. Whatever you think about him, whatever jealousy you feel, you keep it to yourself. Do you understand? This one hurts, but Blake forces himself to agree. I understand. I won't say anything against him. Jade is quiet for a moment. Then she says, Saturday, 2 o'clock, Riverside Park, near the playground. I'll bring them. You'll have 1 hour. Make it count. Thank you, Blake whispers, his voice breaking. God, Jade, thank you. Don't thank me yet, Jade says. You haven't passed the first test. She hangs up, and Blake sits in his office with tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by gratitude and terror in equal measure because he's been given a chance, one single chance to prove himself. And if he fails, he loses them forever. He has 4 days to prepare for the most important hour of his entire life. Saturday arrives with clear skies and cold November wind. Blake wakes at 5 in the morning after barely sleeping, his mind racing with everything that could go wrong, everything he needs to remember, all the ways he could fail before even beginning. He spends 2 hours choosing clothes. Nothing designer, nothing that screams wealth, just jeans and a simple navy sweater and a jacket that looks normal, that makes him look like any other person instead of a CEO who owns things worth more than most people's houses. He drives to Riverside Park an hour early, unable to stay home any longer, needing to be there even though being early means sitting in his car and watching the minutes crawl past with agonizing slowness. At 1:55, Jade's car pulls into the parking lot. Blake gets out of his car with shaking hands and walks toward the playground, his heart hammering so hard he's surprised. It stays in his chest, surprised it doesn't just break through his ribs and expose itself to the elements. Jade opens the back door of her car, and 2 small figures climb out. Harper and Hayden, wearing purple and teal puffy jackets today, their faces identical and perfect and carrying. Features Blake recognizes as his own, rearranged into something entirely new and completely miraculous. His daughters, walking toward him, holding their mother's hands, completely unaware that the man they're about to meet is their father, that he's been searching for them desperately, that he's missed them every single day of the last 8 months since he discovered they exist. Blake kneels down to their eye level as they approach, trying to make himself less intimidating, trying to meet them where they are rather than towering over them like an adult stranger who could be frightening. Jade stops a few feet away. Girls, this is my friend Blake. Blake, these are my daughters, Harper and Hayden. Blake looks into faces that are his and Jade's combined and says the only thing that matters. Hi, I'm so happy to meet you. The girls stare at him with identical expressions of curiosity mixed with uncertainty. Harper, the one in purple, steps slightly closer to Jade's leg, her small hand gripping the fabric of her mother's jeans. Hayden, in teal, tilts her head and studies Blake's face with an intensity that makes him feel completely transparent. You have gray eyes, Hayden observes, her voice high and clear, like the sky when it's gonna rain. Blake's throat constricts. I do. And you have them too. Both of you. Harper's eyes narrow slightly, analytical, even at 3 years old. Why are you friends with our mama? Blake glances at Jade, uncertain how to answer, desperate not to say the wrong thing in the first 30 seconds. Jade gives him the smallest nod, permission to answer honestly within the boundaries she's set. I knew your mama a long time ago, Blake says carefully, before you were born, and I'm very happy to meet you now. Do you like dinosaurs? Hayden asks abruptly, the question seemingly random but clearly important to her. I do, Blake says, even though he hasn't thought about dinosaurs in decades. Do you? Harper likes them best, Hayden says, pointing at her sister. She knows all their names. I like singing better. What do you like to sing? Blake asks. Hayden immediately launches into a song, something about a rabbit and a tree, her small voice enthusiastic if not entirely on key. She spins in a circle while singing, her teal jacket flaring out, and Blake watches with wonder because this is his daughter, singing for him without any awareness of how profound this moment is. Harper watches her sister with a small smile, then looks back at Blake. She sings all the time. Mama says she came out singing. I bet she did, Blake says softly. Jade speaks up, her voice gentle but firm. Blake thought maybe you'd like to play on the playground for a little while. Would that be okay? Can he push us on the swings? Hayden asks immediately. If he wants to, Jade says, looking at Blake. I would love to, Blake manages, his voice rough with emotion. Hayden grabs Blake's hand without hesitation, her small fingers wrapping around two of his, tugging him toward the swing set with the confidence of a child who hasn't yet learned to fear strangers. Harper follows more slowly, still evaluating, still deciding whether this new person is trustworthy. Blake helps Hayden onto a swing, his hands shaking as he positions her safely, as he steps behind and gives her a gentle push. Her delighted laughter cuts through him like something sharp and beautiful simultaneously. Higher, she demands. Push me to the sky. Blake pushes carefully, not too high, hyper-aware of Jade watching from a bench nearby, of Harper, standing to the side observing everything with those serious eyes that are so much like his own. Do you want me to push you too? Blake asks Harper. She considers this for a long moment. Okay, but not too high. I don't like when my stomach feels funny. Blake helps her onto the swing next to her sister and pushes gently, respecting her boundaries, letting her control the height. And for several minutes, there's just this. Two little girls swinging, their laughter mixing with cold wind, their father pushing them and trying not to cry at the simple perfection of it. What kind of work do you do? Harper asks suddenly, her question coming mid-swing. I work with computers and technology, Blake says, simplifying drastically, helping companies figure out how to do things better. Mama works with computers too, Harper says. She makes things pretty and easy to use. I know, Blake says. Your mama is very talented. Are you rich? Harper asks bluntly, and Blake nearly stumbles. Harper, Jade calls from the bench, a warning in her tone. It's okay, Blake says quickly. Then, to Harper, I have enough money, yes, but having money isn't the most important thing. What is the most important thing? Harper asks, her 3-year-old wisdom cutting straight to the heart of everything. Blake slows her swing and kneels down to her eye level again. Being there for people you care about, showing up when you say you will, being honest and kind, those things matter more than money. Harper studies his face like she's memorizing it, like she's cataloging every feature for future reference. Okay, she says finally, accepting this answer for now. The hour passes too quickly. They move from swings to the slide to the climbing structure, Blake following the girls' lead, answering their endless questions, listening to Hayden's stories and Harper's observations. He learns that Harper's favorite color is purple, but only certain purples, not the red ones. He learns that Hayden has a stuffed rabbit named Carrots who goes everywhere with her except school. He learns that they both love macaroni and cheese but hate peas, that they share a bedroom with matching beds, that they have a cat named Whiskers who's very old and sleeps a lot. He learns his daughters in small details that feel enormous, that feel like pieces of a puzzle he's been missing for 3 years finally sliding into place. When Jade stands and calls that it's time to go, both girls protest. But we just got here. Hayden complains. We've been here for an hour, baby, Jade says gently. It's time for lunch. Can Blake come to lunch? Hayden asks hopefully. Blake's heart leaps, but Jade shakes her head. Not today. Maybe another time. Will we see him again? Harper asks, and there's something in her voice, some need for certainty that Blake recognizes because he feels it too. Would you like to? Jade asks, leaving the choice to them. Yes, Hayden says immediately. Harper takes longer, thinking it through. Then she nods, slowly. Yes, he can come back. Blake kneels down one more time. I would really like to see you again. Maybe next week? He looks at Jade, who nods. Next Saturday, same time. I'll be here, Blake promises, and he means it with every fiber of his being. Hayden surprises him by throwing her small arms around his neck in a spontaneous hug that nearly breaks him. Blake hugs her back carefully, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and playground dirt and pure innocence. Harper waves from a safe distance, not ready for hugs yet, but the wave is something. It's acknowledgement. It's a beginning. Blake watches them walk back to Jade's car, Watches Jade buckle them into car seats, watches his family drive away while he stands in the cold November air feeling like he's been given the most precious gift in the world and simultaneously like he's being torn apart because he only gets an hour. Only gets supervised visits, only gets the smallest fraction of what he should have had all along. But it's more than he had yesterday. It's a start. Family, pause with me for just a moment. Can you imagine what Blake just experienced? Meeting your children for the first time when they're already 3 years old already. Full people with personalities and preferences and entire lives. You know nothing about? Can you feel the weight of that hour, knowing one mistake could end everything before it even begins? If this story is gripping your heart, if you're invested in seeing whether Blake can actually prove himself, I need you to smash that subscribe button right now, because what comes next is going to test him in ways he can't imagine. Harper and Hayden are about to become the teachers who show him what fatherhood actually means. And Jade? She's about to face an impossible choice between the safe future she planned and the complicated past that's demanding resolution. Drop a comment below. Do you think Blake deserves this chance? Do you think some mistakes are too big to forgive? Or are you team second chances? Let me hear you, family. And remember to hit that like button because your engagement keeps this channel alive, keeps these stories coming to you every single week. Now let's see what happens when showing up once isn't enough. When Blake has to prove that consistency isn't just a word, it's a promise kept again and again and again. Blake sits in his car for 20 minutes after they leave, his hands gripping the steering wheel. His entire body shaking with the emotional aftermath of the most important hour of his life. He exceeded every fear he had, didn't say the wrong thing, didn't push too hard, didn't make them uncomfortable. Hayden hugged him. Harper waved. They both said yes to seeing him again. It's the smallest victory, but it feels monumental. He drives home and immediately starts researching. Child development for 3-year-olds, age-appropriate activities, how to build trust with young children, how to be present without being overwhelming. He fills notebooks with information, desperate to do this right, desperate to never give Jade a reason to end these visits. His phone rings that evening. His mother's hospice nurse. Mr. Ashworth, I'm sorry to inform you that your mother passed away this afternoon at 3:15. Blake closes his eyes. He was meeting his daughters when his mother died. There's poetry in that, perhaps. Or justice. Or just the random timing of a universe that doesn't care about symbolic moments. Thank you for letting me know, Blake says quietly. She left instructions for her funeral arrangements, the nurse continues. And a letter for you. The funeral is small. Blake's brother flies in from Seattle, a few distant cousins attend, some business associates who feel obligated. Jade doesn't come, and Blake doesn't expect her to. His mother destroyed her life. Jade owes Constance Ashworth nothing, not even attendance at her funeral. The letter his mother left is short. Blake, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I destroyed the most important relationships in your life through my own prejudice and need for control. But I hope you know that I loved you, even if I showed that love in the most toxic ways possible. Fight for them. Fight for Jade and those beautiful girls in the way you should have fought 3 years ago. Don't let my sins become your excuse for giving up. Be the father I never let you be. Be the man your father would have been proud of. The trust is set up. Their futures are secured financially. It's not redemption. Nothing could redeem what I did. But it's something. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, completely sorry, Mother. Blake folds the letter and puts it in his desk drawer next to the birth certificates and the wedding ring he couldn't bear to sell. Then he goes to his second Saturday meeting with his daughters, because he promised. He'd be there, and broken promises are what destroyed his family the first time. This meeting is easier. The girls remember him, run to greet him with less hesitation. They play for an hour, and Blake learns more details. Harper wants to be a scientist. When she grows up, Hayden wants to be a singer, or maybe a veterinarian, or maybe both. They both love story time at the library. They're scared of thunderstorms, but like regular rain. Hayden sleeps with 7 stuffed animals. Harper organizes her toys by category before bed every night. Blake files away every detail like treasure. Third visit, Jade brings them to a children's museum. Blake follows them through exhibits, helps Harper with a dinosaur puzzle, listens to Hayden sing along with an interactive music display. He buys them nothing from the gift shop, even though he wants to buy everything, because Jade's rules were clear. Fourth visit, the park again. But this time Harper asks him questions. Where do you live? Do you have pets? What's your favorite food? She's gathering data, building a profile, trying to understand who this person is who keeps showing up. Blake answers honestly. He lives in a penthouse downtown. No pets because he works too much, but he used to have a dog when he was young. His favorite food is his grandmother's lasagna recipe, which he hasn't made in years. You should make it for us sometime, Hayden says casually, like it's the simplest thing in the world to imagine Blake cooking for them. Blake glances at Jade, who gives the smallest shrug. Maybe. Someday. Not yet. 5th visit, 6th visit, 7th visit. Blake shows up every single Saturday at 2 p.m. exactly. Never late. Never with excuses. Never missing, even when he has a board meeting that has to be rescheduled. Even when he's fighting off a cold, even when showing up is inconvenient. He shows up because he promised. 2 months pass. Christmas approaches. The girls talk excitedly about Santa and presents and their preschool holiday show. Are you coming to our show? Hayden asks during their 10th visit. Blake looks at Jade, uncertain. Am I allowed? Jade hesitates, then nods. It's Thursday at 6 p.m. You can come, but you'll sit separately. Blake attends the holiday show in a crowd of parents and grandparents and extended family, watching. Harper and Hayden sing carols in matching red dresses, watching them wave at Jade in the audience. He stays in the back, doesn't approach afterward, doesn't insert himself where he doesn't belong. But he's there, present, witnessing their lives. Garrett is there too. Blake sees him sitting next to Jade, sees him lean over to whisper something that makes her smile, sees him clap enthusiastically when the girls finish their song. And Blake has to swallow jealousy like poison, has to remind himself that Garrett earned his place, there through consistency, through showing up long before Blake knew these children existed. After the show, Jade catches Blake in the parking lot. Thank you for coming. It meant something to them that you were here. Thank you for letting me, Blake says quietly. Jade hesitates, then says, we're having a small birthday party in January, for the girl's 4th birthday. Just family. Ruby and my mom and Garrett. You're welcome to come, if you want. Blake's heart nearly stops. I want to. More than anything. It's at my house, Jade says, and Blake realizes she's never told him where she lives, has kept that boundary firm. I'll text you the address. Okay. Blake manages. He shows up to the birthday party with carefully chosen, modest gifts. Art supplies for Harper, a karaoke microphone for Hayden, things that match their interests without being extravagant. Jade's house is small but warm, filled with photos and children's artwork, and the kind of lived-in comfort that money can't buy. Ruby eyes Blake with suspicion but grudging acceptance. Jade's mother is cordial but distant, a woman who watched her daughter suffer and isn't ready to forgive the man who caused it, even indirectly. And then there's Garrett. Dr. Garrett Cole is everything Blake feared, tall, handsome, and accessible, warm and genuine with an easy smile and natural comfort around the girls. He's wearing jeans and a sweater, and he belongs here in a way Blake doesn't, in a way Blake may never belong. Harper runs to Garrett immediately. Garrett, you came. Did you bring your stethoscope? I did, Garrett says, pulling it from his pocket. Want to listen to your heartbeat? He kneels down and lets Harper listen, explains what she's hearing, makes it educational and fun simultaneously. Hayden crowds in, wanting her turn, and Garrett includes her seamlessly. Blake watches from across the room and feels the knife of jealousy twist deeper because Garrett is good with them. Natural. Practiced. He's been to birthday parties before, has established routines and inside jokes and history Blake will never have. Jade appears beside Blake. You okay? Fine. Blake lies. He's a good man, Jade says quietly. I can see that, Blake admits. I wish I couldn't. Jade almost smiles. It would be easier if you could hate him. Much easier, Blake agrees. Garrett approaches later, after cake has been served and presents opened, after the girls are playing with new toys in the corner. He extends his hand to Blake, professional and polite. Blake Ashworth. We haven't been formally introduced. I'm Garrett Cole. Blake shakes his hand, noting the firm grip, the direct eye contact. I know who you are, and I know who you are, Garrett says evenly. The girls talk about you constantly. Blake said this. Blake taught me that. Blake promised we could do such and such next week. Blake doesn't know how to respond to that. I want you to know, Garrett continues, his voice low enough that only Blake can hear. I didn't come into their lives to replace you. I didn't even know you. existed when I met Jade. I just saw a woman who needed support and beautiful kids who deserved someone who showed up. That's all I was trying to do. Show up. You did more than show up, Blake says, and he means it as acknowledgement, not accusation. You were there when I couldn't be, when I didn't know to be. Thank you for that. Garrett looks surprised, like he expected hostility instead of gratitude. They're easy to love. Yeah, Blake says quietly. They are. There's a moment of understanding between them. Two men who love the same family for different reasons, who both want what's best for Harper and Hayden, even if what's best remains unclear. I won't make this harder than it has to be, Garrett says finally, but I won't step aside either. Jade has to make her own choice about her future. The girls have to decide what kind of relationship they want with you. I'm just going to keep being present and let the rest work itself out. That's fair, Blake says, even though nothing about this situation feels fair. The party continues. Blake stays until the end, helps clean up despite Jade's protests, earns a slight nod of approval from Ruby when he washes dishes without being asked. The girls hug him goodbye, both of them now, Harper finally comfortable enough for brief physical affection. Blake drives home and sits in his empty penthouse and thinks about Garrett and Jade's small, warm house. Belonging there in a way Blake doesn't, building a future Blake destroyed before it could begin. But he also thinks about Harper's hug, about Hayden's excitement when she saw him at the party, about Jade texting him the address, inviting him into their home for the first time. Small victories, incremental progress. He's not giving up. Weeks pass. February turns to March. Blake maintains his Saturday visits with religious consistency. Jade gradually relaxes some boundaries, extends visits to 2 hours, then 3. Allows them to go to different locations, a science museum, a children's theater performance, a pottery painting studio where the girls make misshapen bowls that Blake treasures like they're worth millions. In April, 4 months after the first meeting, Harper tests him. They're at the park, and Harper asks seemingly casually if something really important came up at your work. Would you skip seeing us? Blake kneels down to her eye level, recognizing this for what it is, the question that matters, the test of whether his consistency is real or temporary. No, I wouldn't skip seeing you. Harper's eyes narrow skeptically. But what if it was really, really important, like your whole company might get in trouble important? Harper, I missed 3 years of your life because I put other things first, Blake says, keeping his voice gentle but absolutely certain. I put work and obligation and fear ahead of what actually mattered. I won't make that mistake again. Nothing is more important than being here when I say I will. Nothing. Prove it, Harper says, and there's challenge in her voice, a dare. Blake doesn't realize he's being set up until 2 weeks later, when he has a board meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. on Saturday, the same time as their visit. The meeting is crucial, dealing with a merger that could make or break the company's next quarter. His assistant scheduled it months ago, before Blake had standing Saturday afternoon commitments. Blake reschedules the meeting. His board is not pleased. Conference calls are arranged. Blake takes them Friday evening and Sunday morning, working around his commitment instead of breaking it. Saturday at 2 p.m., he's at the park. Harper is watching when he arrives, her small face serious as she checks her plastic watch. You came. I told you I would, Blake says. I'll always come. Harper studies him for another long moment. Then she walks over and hugs him, really hugs him, her small arms wrapping around his waist and holding tight. Okay, she whispers. Okay, I believe you now. Blake kneels down and hugs her back. This serious little girl who needed proof instead of promises, who tested him and waited to see if he'd pass. Thank you for giving me a chance to prove it. When he looks up, Jade is watching from her usual bench, and there are tears streaming down her face. She wipes them away quickly, but Blake saw them. She witnessed him choosing right, witnessed him proving through action instead of words that he's changed. Something shifts after that. Jade starts staying closer during visits, engaging in conversation instead of just supervising from a distance. They talk about the girls, about developmental milestones and funny things they've said, but gradually they start talking about other things too. About Jade's work, about a difficult client she's dealing with, about Blake's struggle to remove his mother's influence from company culture, about shared memories from before everything fell apart. In May, Jade mentions casually that Garrett proposed months ago. Blake already knew from the ring, but hearing her say it still hurts. "Congratulations," Blake forces out. "I said yes," Jade continues. "But we haven't set a date. Everything feels complicated." Blake doesn't push, doesn't ask what she means by complicated, doesn't let himself hope that maybe the complication is him. But then in early June, 7 months after the first meeting, Blake notices the ring is gone. He's pushing the girls on the swings when he sees Jade's bare left hand, and his heart stops entirely. He almost asks, almost demands to know what happened, but forces himself to wait, to let her tell him if and when she's ready. After the girls run off to the slide, Jade sits on the bench next to Blake instead of across from him, and there's something different in her posture, something she needs to say. "Garrett and I are taking a break," she says quietly. "It wasn't fair to him while I'm figuring things out." Blake's mouth goes dry. Figuring what out? Jade looks at him, really looks at him, and Blake sees everything he needs to know in her eyes before she says a word. "Figuring out if the man you've become is someone I can trust. Figuring out if what we had is completely dead, or if there's something that could be rebuilt. Figuring out if I'm holding on to the past, or if the past is trying to tell me something important." "And Garrett?" Blake asks carefully. "Deserves someone who's certain," Jade says. "Deserves someone who's not comparing him to their ex-husband. Deserves better than being a safe choice while I work through my feelings about you." Blake doesn't know what to say to that. Doesn't know if he's allowed to hope. "This isn't about you," Jade adds quickly. "Not directly. This is about me needing clarity. About not being able to move forward until I've resolved what's behind me. But Blake, you showing up every week, you rescheduling that board meeting, you being patient with Harper's testing, it's making me question everything I thought I knew about who you are. I'm not the same person who signed those divorce papers," Blake says quietly. "I've spent the last years systematically changing everything about how I live, how I work, how I make decisions. My mother doesn't control me anymore. Fear doesn't control me anymore. I'm learning to choose right even when right is hard." "I see that," Jade says. "I'm watching you prove it. But watching you prove it doesn't automatically mean I trust you with my heart again. Those are two different things." "I know," Blake says, "and I'll keep proving it for as long as it takes. Whether you ever trust me again or not, I'll keep showing up for them. They're worth it." "So am I," Jade says firmly. "I'm worth the effort too, Blake. Not just as their mother, as a person. As someone you destroyed who had to rebuild herself from scratch. You're worth everything," Blake says, his voice breaking. "You always were. I just didn't have the courage to fight for you when it mattered." Jade stands, preparing to gather the girls. "Then fight now. Prove it now. Not with words, with actions, with consistency. With choosing right again and again until choosing right becomes who you are instead of something you have to think about." She walks away, and Blake sits on the park bench with his heart racing because Jade is single, because she's questioning, because maybe, possibly, there's a chance for something more than co-parenting. But he also knows he can't push, can't rush, can't do anything except keep showing up and let his actions speak louder than any promises ever could. Summer arrives. The visits continue, now sometimes during the week for dinner at Casual, restaurants, trips to splash pads, outdoor movie nights in the park. Blake integrates into their lives gradually, becoming familiar instead of novel, becoming routine instead of special occasion. The girls stop calling him Blake. It happens organically, without discussion or formal decision. One day in July, Hayden calls out, "Dad, watch this," before doing a cartwheel on the grass. Harper corrects her, "He's Blake." But then 2 weeks later, Harper herself says, "Dad, can you help me with this?" while struggling with a puzzle. Blake looks at Jade, uncertain if this is allowed, if they've reached that milestone, or if the girls are moving too fast. "They can call you whatever feels right to them," Jade says quietly. "You are their father. We can't hide that from them forever, and I don't want to." So Blake becomes dad. Not all the time, not consistently, but more and more frequently as the months pass and the relationship deepens. In August, Blake takes them to a baseball game, their first, and teaches them to keep score and explains the rules and buys them overpriced hot dogs that they devour while watching players run bases. Hayden gets bored by the third inning and sings to herself instead of watching. Harper is riveted, asking questions about strategy and statistics and why the umpire made that call. Blake glances at Jade beside him and feels something shift, feels like maybe they're not just co-parents, attending an event separately, but something closer to a family unit, something that feels almost whole. "Thank you for this," Jade says quietly during the 7th inning stretch. "They're going to remember this forever." I hope so, Blake says. I'm trying to give them memories to make up for the ones I missed. You can't make up for what you missed, Jade says gently. You can only build new memories going forward. That's all any of us can do. In September, the girls start pre-K. Blake asks if he can attend the first day drop-off, and Jade says yes. He stands with other parents taking photos, watching Harper march confidently into class while Hayden clings to Jade for an extra moment before letting go. Afterward, Blake and Jade stand in the parking lot, and Blake hears himself ask, "Do you want to get coffee? Just the two of us?" Jade hesitates, then nods. "Okay." "Yes." Coffee. They go to a small cafe near the school and sit across from each other like strangers on a first date, except they're not strangers. They're two people with years of history trying to figure out if there's any future. "I've been thinking," Jade says, wrapping her hands around her mug, "about what happens next, about where we go from here." Blake's heart hammers. And I don't know," Jade admits. "I know you've changed. I know you've proven yourself through 9 months of consistency. I know the girls love you. I know you're a good father. But Blake, being a good father doesn't automatically make you someone I can build a life with again." "I know," Blake says quietly. "Do you still love me?" Jade asks abruptly. "Or is this about guilt and the girls and trying to rebuild something that's actually dead?" Blake doesn't hesitate. "I never stopped loving you. I loved you through 3 years of absence, through watching another man give you the life I destroyed, through every single moment of the last 9 months when I was grateful just to be near you. I'm still in love with you, Jade. Not who you were, who you are now. This stronger, fiercer version of you who survived what should have destroyed her." Jade's eyes fill with tears. "I think I might be falling in love with you again too, and it terrifies me." Blake's breath catches. "Why?" "Because I trusted you once and you broke me," Jade says, her voice shaking. "You chose your mother over me. You chose the easy path over the right path. And even though you've changed, even though you've proven yourself, I'm scared that when things get hard again, and they will get hard, you'll choose wrong. You'll take the easy path. You'll break me again." "I won't," Blake says desperately. "I swear to you." "Don't swear," Jade interrupts. "Show me. Keep showing me. Let's take this slow. Let's figure out if we can rebuild trust before we try to rebuild us." "Okay," Blake agrees immediately. "However slow you need, whatever you need." They finish their coffee and talk about small things, safe things, letting the big conversations settle. When they walk back to their cars, Jade hesitates before getting in hers. "Blake, yeah? Thank you for fighting this time, for not giving up when I made it hard, for proving that you're capable of choosing right even when it's inconvenient." Blake steps closer, careful not to invade her space. "Thank you for giving me the chance to prove it." Jade reaches out and squeezes his hand briefly, then lets go and gets in her car. Blake watches her drive away and feels hope, real hope, for the first time in 4 years. Fall passes in a blur of school events and park visits and family dinners that feel more natural each time. Blake and Jade are careful with each other, rebuilding slowly, but there are moments, hands touching when they both reach for the same thing, eyes meeting across the table while the girls chatter, late-night texts about nothing important that feel deeply intimate. In November, 1 year after Blake first saw them at the school fence, Jade invites him to Thanksgiving dinner. Ruby and her mother will be there, and it's the first time Blake has been included in a major family holiday. He shows up with flowers for Jade, and wine for the table, and genuine gratitude for the invitation. Ruby is warmer now, having watched him show up consistently for a year. Jade's mother remains reserved but civil, protecting her daughter while acknowledging Blake's efforts. After dinner, while the girls play with toys and the adults clean up, Ruby corners Blake in the kitchen. "If you hurt her again," Ruby says quietly, "there's nowhere you can hide that I won't find you. Do you understand?" "I understand," Blake says. "And I won't. I promise you, I won't." "Good," Ruby says. Then, softer, she's happy again. "I haven't seen her this happy in years. Don't mess it up." In December, Blake asks Jade on an official date. Not coffee after school drop-off. Not dinner with the girls. An actual date, just the two of them. Intentional and romantic. Jade says yes. They go to a small Italian restaurant. Nothing fancy, somewhere they can talk without pretense. They order wine and pasta, and for the first time in a year, they talk about them instead of just the girls. "Tell me about your work," Blake says. "Really tell me. I want to know about your projects, your goals, Everything you've built. Jade talks about her business, about the healthcare interfaces she designs, about her dream of expanding into accessibility consulting. Blake listens and asks questions and falls more in love with this version of Jade, who built a career from ruins and refuses to let anyone diminish her again. Tell me about removing your mother's influence from the company, Jade says. What did that actually look like? Blake talks about restructuring the board, about removing executives who were his mother's loyalists, about changing company culture from top-down control to collaborative decision-making, about how hard it was to dismantle systems his mother built, but how necessary. I'm proud of you, Jade says quietly, for doing that, for choosing to change instead of just accepting how things were. At the end of the night, Blake walks Jade to her car. They stand in the parking lot, and the air between them feels electric, full of possibility and fear in equal measure. Can I kiss you? Blake asks, his voice rough. Jade looks at him for a long moment. Then she nods. Blake kisses her gently, carefully, like she's something precious that might break. Jade kisses him back, and it's familiar and completely new simultaneously, like coming home and discovering your house has been rebuilt into something better. When they pull apart, Jade is crying. What's wrong? Blake asks immediately. Nothing's wrong, Jade says, wiping her eyes. I just didn't think I'd ever feel this way again. Safe with you, like maybe we could actually have a future. We can, Blake says, if you'll let me prove it. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Jade smiles through tears. You already are. Winter passes. They date slowly, carefully, rebuilding trust, brick by brick. Blake meets Jade's extended family at Christmas. Jade comes to company events as his partner, not his secret. They're building something real, something earned through consistency instead of passion, through action instead of promises. In January, on the girl's 4th birthday, Blake gives them matching lockets. Simple, appropriate for children, with space inside for photos. Can we put pictures of our family in them? Hayden asks. Whatever pictures you want, Blake says. Harper immediately decides hers should have photos of Jade and Blake. Hayden wants Jade, Blake, Ruby, and Grandma. They're creating their own definition of family, including everyone who's shown up for them. That night, after the party, after the girls are in bed, Blake and Jade sit on her couch and Blake pulls out a folder he's been carrying. What's this? Jade asks. The trust fund from my mother, Blake says. I've been managing it, but I wanted to show you everything. I want you to have full transparency about what she left them, about how it's invested, about what it means for their futures. Jade looks through the documents, her eyes widening at the amounts. This is a lot, Blake finishes. Enough for their education, for their futures, for security. It's blood money from the woman who destroyed us. But it's theirs regardless. We accept it. Jade decides. Not for her, for them. Because they deserve security and opportunity. Blake nods, relieved. Then he says what he's been holding back for months. Jade, I need to tell you something. And I need you to hear it completely before you respond. Jade sets the folder aside, giving him her full attention. I've spent a year proving I can show up for our daughters, Blake says, his voice steady despite his hammering heart. And I'll keep proving it for the rest of my life, whether you and I ever become anything more than CO parents. They're my priority, always. He takes a breath. But I need you to know that I'm still in love with you. I'm in love with the woman you become, with your strength and your fierce protection of our girls and the way you rebuilt yourself when you had every reason to stay broken. I'm not asking you to love me back. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking if you feel anything at all, would you let me try, not to recapture what we had, that's gone, but to build something new, something earned through showing up, through choosing right, through being the man I should have been 4 years ago. Jade's eyes are full of tears, but she's smiling. I've been terrified to tell you this, terrified of what it means. But Blake, I think I'm falling in love with you again, not the you from before, the you that you've become. Blake's heart stops. But I'm scared, Jade admits. Scared you'll choose wrong again. Scared I'll trust you completely and you'll destroy me. Then let me keep proving it, Blake says. Every single day, for however long it takes until the fear fades. I'll show you through actions that I've changed, that I'm capable of choosing us over everything else. Jade reaches out and takes his hand. Okay, yes, let's try. Let's build something new. Blake kisses her then, deep and passionate and full of promise. Jade kisses him back, and it feels like forgiveness, like hope, like maybe they're finally finding their way back to each other through completely different paths. Slow, Jade says when they pull apart. We do this slow. The girls need stability. I need time to trust completely. As slow as you need, Blake promises. They spend the rest of the evening talking about what slow looks like, about waiting before he stays over, about not rushing into living together, about building their relationship on solid ground before making it official. I won't propose again until you're ready, Blake says. Until we both know this is forever. Thank you, Jade says, for understanding that forever takes time. 18 months pass in gradual, deliberate building. Blake and Jade date while co-parenting, growing closer while maintaining boundaries that protect the girls from instability. Blake proves himself through continued consistency, never missing visits, never choosing work over family, never making Jade question whether he'll show up. The girls thrive. Harper excels in kindergarten, her analytical mind devouring science and math. Hayden joins a children's choir and performs with confidence. They call Blake Dad consistently now, and they've started asking when he's going to live with them. When it's time, Jade tells them. When we're all ready. In summer, 2 years after Blake first stood at that fence, Jade tells Blake she's ready for him to move in. They spend months looking for a house that's theirs, not his penthouse or her rental, but a place they choose together. They find a house with a yard big enough for the twins to play in, with bedrooms for each girl, with space for Blake's home office and Jade's design studio. They move in together in fall, becoming a complete family unit for the first time. Garrett comes to their housewarming party. He's dating someone new, a nurse from his hospital, and he's genuinely happy. He and Blake have developed a respectful friendship, two men who both love the same family and can acknowledge each other's importance without competition. Thank you, Blake says to Garrett privately, for taking care of them when I couldn't. Thank you for proving you deserve them, Garrett responds, and for making Jade happy. That's all I ever wanted. In December, 2.5 years after that first meeting, Blake plans his proposal carefully. Not a grand gesture, not an expensive ring, just something meaningful and true. He takes Jade back to Riverside Park, to the bench where she used to sit, and watch while he played with the girls during those early visits. This is where I learned what it means to be a father, Blake says, holding both her hands. This is where I proved I could show up, where I earned the right to be in their lives. Jade smiles, understanding where this is going. I love you, Blake says, not in spite of everything we went through, but because of who we both became in the process. You taught me that trust is earned, that love requires action, that showing up is the most important thing you can do, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing up for you and for our daughters. He pulls out a ring, simple, elegant, chosen with Jade's taste in mind, not his mother's approval. Will you marry me? Again, for real this time, with no lies and no manipulation and nothing but honest choice? Jade is crying, but she's smiling too. Yes. God, yes. Blake slides the ring on her finger, and Jade kisses him there on the bench where their rebuilding began, where trust was slowly constructed from ruins, where their family learned to become whole. 1 year later, the wedding is small, just close family and friends gathered in their backyard, the house they chose. Together, the life they built through deliberate action and consistent choice. Harper and Hayden are flower girls, wearing matching lavender dresses and scattering petals with serious concentration. Ruby officiates, a nod to the sister who held Jade together when everything fell apart, who watched Blake prove himself and finally gave her blessing. Blake's vows are simple. I promise to show up every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to choose us over everything else. I promise that you'll never have to wonder if I'll fight for our family, because fighting for you is the easiest choice I'll ever make. Jade's vows make everyone cry. I promise to trust you with my heart again, to believe that people can change, to build our future on who we are now instead of who we were then. I promise to love you through the hard stuff, through the complicated stuff, through all of it. They kiss while their daughters cheer, while their family applauds, while the life they've built together feels solid and real and earned through the hardest possible path. At the reception, Blake watches Jade dance with the girls, watches his family, being joyful and complete, and he thinks about his mother's letter. Be the father I never let you be. Be the man your father would have been proud of. He's trying. Every single day, he's trying. Harper approaches him during a quiet moment. She's 6 now, sharp and observant and wise beyond her years. "Are you happy, Dad?" she asks. Blake kneels down to her eye level, the way he did that first day at the park when she was barely 3 and didn't know who he was. "I'm happier than I ever thought possible." "Good," Harper says seriously. "Because you're stuck with us now. You married Mama, so you can't leave." Blake pulls her into a hug. "I wouldn't leave even if I could. You're my whole world, you and Hayden and your Mama. Nothing could make me walk away from that." "Promise?" Harper asks, needing the security of verbal commitment. "Promise," Blake says. "With my whole heart, I promise." Harper hugs him back, satisfied, and runs off to rejoin her sister. Jade appears beside Blake. "What was that about?" "Just Harper making sure I'm committed," Blake says, smiling. "And are you?" Jade asks, even though she knows the answer. "Completely," Blake says. He pulls her close and kisses her temple. "You gave me everything when I deserved nothing. You let me earn my way back into our family. I'll never take that for granted." "Good," Jade says, leaning into him. "Because this is forever, the real kind, the kind built on truth." They stand together watching their daughters play, watching their family celebrate, and Blake knows with absolute certainty that he's finally where he belongs. He lost 3 years to lies and cowardice, but he gained a lifetime by learning what actually matters, not wealth or status or family legacy, but showing up, choosing love over fear, fighting for what matters, even when the fight is uncomfortable. The past can't be changed. The mistakes can't be unmade. But the future? The future is built one kept promise at a time, one consistent choice at a time. One moment of choosing right when wrong would be easier. And Blake Ashworth has learned that lesson in the hardest possible way. He'll spend the rest of his life living it. Family, take a breath with me. This is what redemption actually looks like. Not a grand gesture, not an apology that fixes everything, not an easy path to forgiveness. Real redemption is Blake showing up every single Saturday for 9 months before his daughter finally trusted him. Real redemption is Jade risking her heart again after it was shattered completely. Real redemption is building something new from the ruins of what was destroyed. Let me tell you what this story is really about. It's not about wealthy CEOs or dramatic reunions. It's about the choices we make when we're tested. It's about standing up to the people we love when they ask us to do wrong. It's about fighting for what matters, even when the easier path is right there in front of us. Blake lost 3 years because he chose obedience over courage. He chose his mother's approval over his wife's love. He chose the safe path over the right path. And the consequence? He missed watching his daughters learn to walk. He missed their first words. He missed birthdays and scraped knees and bedtime stories. He missed everything. But here's the powerful truth. It's never too late to choose differently. It's never too late to start showing up. It's never too late to become the person you should have been all along. Jade's lesson is just as important. Survival doesn't mean staying broken. She built a beautiful life from absolute ruins. She refused to let betrayal define her. She became stronger, more independent, more resilient. And when Blake came back, she didn't just forgive him because he said sorry. She made him prove it. She made him earn it. Because forgiveness without changed behavior is just enabling. And Garrett showed us that sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to hold someone back from resolving their past. His grace taught us that real love isn't possessive, it's generous. The moral is this: your choices have consequences. But consequences don't have to be permanent. Redemption is real, but it requires consistent action over time. Trust is earned, one kept promise at a time. And family, real family, is built through showing up, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it's hard, especially when every part of you wants to choose the easier path. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own choices, your own relationships, your own family, I need you to smash that like button right now. Hit subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips, because we're building a community of people who believe in second chances, in hard-earned redemption, in the power of showing up. Comment below. What choice in your life do you wish you could remake? Or tell me I'm with you, Dr. Phillips, and let me know where in the world you're watching from. Your engagement keeps this channel alive, keeps these stories coming, keeps this community growing. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's not too late to change, that showing up matters, that consistent action speaks louder than any promise. And remember, family, it's never too late to choose right. It's never too late to show up. It's never too late to build the family you were always meant to have. This is Dr. Phillips, reminding you that love isn't about perfect beginnings. It's about refusing to give up, even when you've lost everything. Until next time, family, keep choosing love, keep showing up, keep believing in second chances. Because the best families aren't born perfect, they're rebuilt through determination, consistency, and the courage to choose right, even when wrong feels easier. I'm with you, and I'll see you in the next story.